Welcome to the podcast, Let's Talk PWS, a series all about Prader-Willi syndrome. I'm Susie.
And I'm Katie. Let's start talking.
Good evening, listeners. Welcome to episode 10. This episode is about effective PWS support about food security. And from the last episode 9, not sure if you tuned into that, but we had our wonderful guests, Neil and Michelle from the Orange Hive with us. They're still here. So these are very big questions we're going to talk about today. Let's start with the big one. What is food security in PWS?
I think food security is looks different for every person with PWS. Is the first thing I think we need to really acknowledge. For some people, they need a lot of food security. For other people, it can be quite informal, but I think every person living with PWS needs some level of food security. I think creating food security enables people to know that what their meals are going to be, when they're going to happen, and that it doesn't matter who's here, this is what's going to happen for me around my food. And then that creates the ability for people for that part to just be a little bit more calmed, their anxiety to reduce around their food. And I think then they can focus on everyday living. They can focus on other things. I think when you don't have food security, it can become all-consuming for someone living with PWS.
Yeah. And I guess before, I probably should have taken it back a step as well, because hyperphagia, it's the irony of this syndrome. When a Prader-Willi individual is born, they fail to thrive and they're not eating, and then all of a sudden parents are tormented with this big phrase, hyperphagia, that your child is destined to be eating nonstop out of control, which is really interesting because watching the various Prader-Willi individuals, it does vary from person to person. And, some might split it out into, it depends on how Prader-Willi has been created in that individual, deletion or via UPD, and there's variations of all of that, because we see sometimes, or we hear from families that sometimes this food seeking starts at right from a very, very young age. Whereas with Stephanie, we've never lived with LOX until she was 18, and all of a sudden it just, insert expletive, hit the fan, and it was just, it was crazy. We talk about often the co-regulation requirement. Is that the parent or is it a grandmother or something like that? Never happened on my watch. She would never food seek with me around, but now it's just running rife. So there is that variation, and of course we now know that we need to tailor to that said individual in terms of food security. And it's a big question, so sorry about that, but please carry on.
It is, you're right, it's a massive question. And I guess when we say, and especially in this world of Prader-Willi, when we talk about food security, the first thing that comes into mind is a vault where everything, all the food's locked away.
Yep.
And even to the point where they're getting hand-picked meals, little bits. But again, and again, we've moved so far in the world of Prader-Willi that that's not the case. And when we talk, like Michelle, I think succinctly put it, food security is not just about locking away food. It's more a mentality. So a person with Prader-Willi, for example, if they know that their lunch is coming at 12 o'clock, that food might not need to be locked away. They just need to know that food's coming at 12 o'clock so they can then go about their morning activity without having to worry one bit. Because they know at 12 o'clock as a routine that they'll be getting lunch. Whereas another individual beside them needs to have the food potentially locked away because even though they know that their meal's coming at 12 o'clock, part of their brain will be saying, I still need to go get that.
Yes.
I still need to eat now. Or I actually, is it 12 o'clock yet? No, it's 11:30. Oh, can we bring it forward a little bit early?
Yeah.
So there's two very different examples of the one person with Prader-Willi. So again, when we talk about food security, you're right, it's a massive question. But I think we can move from the fact that it's not just about locking away food, it's more of a mentality. How can we support that person to have the security in their life that they know that they're going to be supported so they can go about doing other things in their lives without having to worry about, where the next meal is coming from or how's it coming from.
Yeah, it was I went to, I think many of us went to the webinar where Dipan Singh was sort of describing it as it's not just, we could be having a conversation with said Prader-Willi individual there, but they're not taking in what you're saying to them. They're just thinking, when is my next where, and they can't concentrate on anything else, and then that drives in turn that extreme anxiety as well. Katie, I'd love to hear, or maybe we can share our own personal experiences. What do you do for Chelsea in terms of food security?
So I guess the reason I met Michelle and Neil is because it did grow into this big overwhelming thing, and it wasn't until we got the food security done or secure that she could do anything else, and it kind of settled down again. And back in those days, I tried to have as little in the fridge as I could, but it wasn't until we actually settled Chelsea on what she was going to have every single day for her snacks and her lunch. And I guess school helps with the routine side of it, with the timing. It's where you kind of learn, okay, that's why they coped so well at school. And maybe that's why it kind of grows out of control when they're not at school, because they're not structured, have that scaffolding with all of those people around them. And all of a sudden the whole world's there's food to be found, and if there is food to be found in our house, Chelsea won't sleep. So, for example, Easter, if there's any extra chocolate in the house, even if it's locked in the pantry, Chelsea will not sleep that night because it's there, and she just needs to know, is it going to be there tomorrow? When am I going to get to eat it? How am I going, like the multitude of questions that happen. But if that didn't come into the house, that night would have been fully, like she would have had a great night's sleep. So that's how extreme it is at our house. But on the other side, Chelsea's really calm and collected because after a year with the Orange Hive, you guys, we had learned how to give her that consistency. And so, for example, before Michelle and Neil came into our lives, Chelsea was she insisted on doing the groceries, and I had to work full time. So I had to actually try to cope with or manage all of it, and there were compromises everywhere. But she was like going to the supermarket and spending hours in all the aisles, checking every single thing. And then at the end, she would go and grab something because the shop was about to shut, and she would scream at me if I didn't buy it for her. So we had that kind of terror going on in our home. And then these guys came and because we were actually able to do overnight stays and things like that, they were able to stretch out the support a bit better and give Chelsea a bit of space where she wasn't just overwhelming me all the time to get to food. And so that carer burnout, and then we kind of restored the situation, but it was all about the food security. So once we actually got the fridge under control and what was in the fridge, and we've always locked our fridge, but once what was in there was just what was there for the week plus dinners, she's been beautiful ever since. So I try never to go too far away from that. But after a couple of years of that, now we can go a little bit here and there. We do go out to restaurants and we do family outings and we do all the occasions. She's very social and she has massive FOMO. She doesn't like to miss out on anything. But even she knows that if we're going to go to a place where there's just food, out of control food everywhere, she actually says, I don't know if I should go to that. So she's coming around and she knows that when we go to a certain place, the food's going to be under control, and like she knows that we're going to easily be able to go to that event.
So during the week, in practical terms, so what does that look like when you say you just buy, for a week's worth?
Yeah.
So share with us.
Chelsea's always been in control of buying her food, but I've always been with her. So we only shop at Aldi. If Aldi doesn't sell it, we don't eat it.
Okay.
So what I love about Aldi is it's 5 aisles. There's one of everything. There's no need to check amounts or quantities or any of that. And then we take it to the dietitian and he says, okay, this needs tweaking or fix that, and I'll try and budget around it with the dinners. So she has her morning snack, then she'll have her lunch, and lunch is always a salad with some protein, so a bit of meat or chicken, and then afternoon snack is a piece of fruit or something, and then dinner, and that's it.
Okay, and then there's just 1 week's worth and the rest of the fridge is empty.
For
she does her entire
shopping,
family.
She does her shopping in 40 minutes. And we're in and out, and then she'll spend an hour or two organising her food, and she'll like try to get a bit of food here and there because she does buy the big dips and she kind of quarters it out for the 4 days. But I don't care because I know that she's going to eat that whole dip in that week, and that's the only calories that we're bringing it. So then we have to try and manage things like when she goes to her day program, if there are, you know, cakes or there's not usually, they're pretty good. But yeah, we've had her weight. I mean, the ultimate, you know, gauge is what the scales say at the end of the day. And so that's been coming down for us, which has been phenomenal. And we're just thrilled that we've had some success and that the Orange Hive were able to actually stop the weight gain and turn the ship around. And it did feel like the Titanic at the time. So that's from my side. But I know that Michelle and Neil have their own sort of take on how that all happened.
And I think, Katie, you touched on something too, and that's the dietitian. You know, so I think you've got to have consistency, but having a dietitian involved can be really, well, I think it's crucial because there is lots of hidden things in food and it's really challenging when you're on a limited calorie. And let's face it, for people with PWS, they constantly feel like they're starving, coupled with they, you know, they don't metabolize food the same.
Correct. Yeah.
And therefore they've got to have a lot less calories than what someone else would for their same weight, height and age. So it's a dietitian can tweak things and still have someone feeling like they're getting the same food, you know, and having maximum choice. I think, you know, that maximum choice around what they have is really important in a really strict framework, because I think, you know, if we take that away, that can be really problematic for people. So it's around creating those abilities to have choices, you know.
Within capacity.
Within capacity. So, you know, what protein do you want with your salad at lunch? You know, so enabling people to have that and to change it if they want to. But I think having a dietitian who's the expert, it gives families, it gives supports the ability to say, if someone wants to change something, I just need to go and check that with the dietitian. And I think that creates a nice scaffolding for people.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking at the next sort of question that we wanted to talk about. Again, it's a really big question, being why is it critical in the life of a person with PWS and their family? It's obviously to maintain their well-being, and there's significant health risks involved. But not only do you need a dietitian, there's a whole host of other clinicians that need to be involved as well. And of course, our 9 times out of 10, our good friends at the federal and state level in terms of restricted practices.
Absolutely, I think. You know, food security does often have some level of restriction.
Yes.
What that looks like for every person is different. And frameworks.
Yep.
There's usually a lot of frameworks that come with food security.
Yeah.
So I think it is working with a dietitian. It's working with families, your supports.
Yeah. OT, BP.
Yeah, your OT, and then your positive behaviour support practitioner are obviously pivotal. And that's where I think we touched on in the last episode about that care team, building a care team around your person is so important, because if you can align that, that's when you can see things really change.
Because Neil, I loved the example that you were saying earlier about knowing when the next meal is and so forth. And I was just absolutely mortified recently with the previous provider of Steph, a SIL provider, and Steph was out at exercise physiology, and of course the support was asleep behind the wheel, so to speak, and Steph broke through the exercise physiology gymnasium room and bin dived into a wheelie bin and retrieved 2 rotten sausage rolls. And that just absolutely floored me. And I've heard about this on, many PWS forums on the socials and so forth. And I just thought, I'm so grateful Stephanie doesn't do that. But then to experience that myself and then know that through the right scaffolding that could have been prevented. Shaking my head.
And if you don't mind, if I use Chelsea as an example, because you brought it up so succinctly before, the fact that like you said, now she can do her shopping. She has some control. And that during the day, there's no locks on the fridge because she knows I'll have my morning tea. And then it's lunchtime, all right, she'll get their lunch out, prepare the lunch. And then it's afternoon tea, we'll get the bit of fruit out. In her mind, she doesn't need to check on what's there. Because I've done it and I've had control. And having that little bit of control over her preparation of her food, yes, it may take a while to prepare her food, but then she understands. Like you said about the Easter eggs, it's not so much that I need to eat one, it's I need to know it's there. I need to know it's there. So when we add in another bit of food into the equation that wasn't there already, so all of a sudden the mind's going, hang on, that's out of my routine. So that's what we're looking for. And we're not necessarily going to go grab it and eat it. We just need to know where is it. And, you know, we've seen that behavior looking at the top of the pantry and looking for things that are not there and taking our time. So we generally get an indication of when something's quite not in the routine when we're spending a bit of extra time doing something else, looking at that. But what that enables, food security enables, like you said, why is it so important? It's vitally important because I'm not so focusing on the food, but it's more what it enables. It enables us, it enables a bit more of a happy family life because we're a bit calmer. You know, mums, dads, sisters and brothers are a bit more calm in the situation. We're not always hyper-focused on other things. And it's not just the food security. It can be security about other things, routines. You know, have I done this? Have I done this correctly? Is that put away?
Yeah, I agree. And I think the fact that Chelsea prepares her meals, her food security is that it's what's seen. So she can see in her mind what she's having and she's happy with that. She was happy with it on Sunday, so she'll be happy with it on Friday.
The whole week's done.
And so we never have a food conversation after that.
And to the point now where we can prepare meals, we can cook meals, we cook meals sometimes, we cook, you know, we do a bit of cooking. It's it's not so much that we want to hide food away. Food is an essential part of everyone's daily life. So how can we introduce food in a safe way to the person we're proud of? How can we cook? When we do maybe some overnights, we really focus on let's cook. Let's cook. There's no harm in cooking. You know, and how we do it and how we do it. So and people think, oh, no, don't put them near food. No, there's no problem with it. It's how we do it, how we go about it and how we create that environment to do it. Because the more exposure you have to it,
the more normalised it is.
Exactly. And it's going to become a more normal behaviour. If we you know, lock the food away and throw away the key and say this is a bad thing, you know, you need to be careful, this is going to cost your whole life is going to revolve around this. The mentality is going to be, I need to get to that. I need to fight and get everything I can to get to that. The absolute opposite, which we see with normal development of normal children. If you throw away, don't look in that door. Don't look in that door. What are they going to do? They want to look in the door.
Well, exactly. It's a case of FOMO then, isn't it, really?
And I think too the other key is, and this is different for every person, but trying to educate them about what PWS means for them. So trying to educate people on, you know, we know that you always feel really hungry. And for each person this is a little bit different, but trying to educate them about why a meal plan's important. If they understand calories and they're good with numbers, you can actually start to do some negotiation around calories. I think the more information someone, and I'm talking about adults living with PWS, but the more information they have, you know, we've seen people get to the space where they have a really strong intellectual knowledge about what PWS means for them and why they need the structures and the frameworks, and they can articulate that to people who meet them. And I think, you know, if you can get people to have as much information and understanding of what PWS and why we've got these things in place, I think that's crucially important. I think the other thing, Katie, you touched on is you go out for meals, you do family things. And yes, for someone with PWS, that means a lot more planning. But I think those experiences are really important because let's face it, food is everywhere in our culture. It's part of all of our important celebrations about being out and about. So I think trying to get some structures and scaffolding in place for someone to understand, well, I might need to order a different meal when I go out. I love seniors meals or a kids menu. When you're doing it, because the portion sizes are just a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
Someone can still order off a menu, but they're having a slightly smaller, So utilising those other things so that people can still get to experience. Because I think what food security, when people have got really strong food security, their quality of life flourishes.
Tricky question that you may not be able to answer because you're saying explaining it to the person that lives with Prader-Willi syndrome. How do you manage this when that person doesn't have the capacity to understand if they've got, say, a moderate intellectual disability such as Stephanie?
I still think so. I think you can work with a dietitian and do things like visual aids. You might actually have, and certainly a dietitian we've worked with brought out 2 different options. You can have this for your snack or that for your snack. But if you're doing this, you can only have, 5 of this because it looked small. And then, or you can have this, which looks really big. And so I think you can do some of those things. How it looks for people, you might actually need to be quite visual, quite, is it photos? Is it actually the products? And I know, Katie, because you've shared about Chelsea, we did that with Chelsea. The dietitian actually brought out 2 options and said, this is what and so we worked with the dietitian and Chelsea to say, these are your 2 choices for morning tea. And so I think that develops people's understanding.
Have you seen success without it?
I think every person living with PWS needs some level of food security. Now, people can be quite independent in managing their food. It might be that they've got a dietitian that does a menu plan and that they check in with regularly and things like, there's other systems in place. So some people do manage their food quite independently. Some people have a lot of structures and restrictive practices in place around their food. But every person that I've worked with, if they've got food security, has some structures around food security. And without them, their quality of life is focused. Their whole life is focused on food as opposed to being able to achieve and do other things.
I know we are getting close to time, but we almost need to have a part B, C and D of this particular topic. But when do you think food security strategy and implementation should start? Right from the get-go?
I would think that if you're starting early, even when you're maybe not even experiencing that hyperphagia, the food seeking, if you have a strong routine at an early age, it's going to make it easier to continue that implementation because it becomes a learned behaviour. And again, what food security looks like for everyone is going to be completely different. So it turns that term food security, again, if we take away that idea, it's just locking away the food. It's not. Everyone's an individual. And what they need, if they have some level of food security, what food security means to them, then it's going to open up other parts of their life. And that's what we're trying to look for. This great example I've used years ago, for many years, a young person who was heavily into sports, and you go to football, you go to cricket games, and they have what we call a pie night. And this person said, I can't go because they're having pies. There's no reason why you can't have a pie.
Correct.
Not 10.
Yes.
And that person goes, really?
Yeah.
And their whole world, because that opened up a social aspect to him. He could be involved with the groups. So it just opened up a whole world that he wasn't really unsure whether he could be a part of. And to learn that little aspect for that person, it worked. You can have one. Just don't have 10. And you're like, really?
Well, no one should have 10.
No, but that's the thing. And he goes, and I can be a part of something normal.
Correct.
And then that was his food security, which allowed him to be a part of a community, which opened up a whole world to that person.
Which is really wonderful.
And it's just those little aspects that we're just trying to focus on.
And I think those conversations early about healthy, these are healthy choices. These are good for our body, that you would be having with your children as they start school and those types of things.
Yeah.
Just having those conversations I think are vitally important.
Still a lot more to discuss on this.
There is, and a lot of it is governed by numbers, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if you're at a really great weight, then of course you're well, I know Chelsea, when she's doing well in her weight, she just feels more confident, and she's more inclined to come at her food, her hunger or food insecurity with some power, because she's like, I'm at a really good weight. I want to keep this going. I want to stay fit. She keeps me to all of our routines with exercise and stuff. So, yeah, food security is really important. And what I was looking forward to when she goes into housing eventually was that, you know, she can have whatever she wants to eat, but the dietitian will decide how many calories are going to go in that. And so all of that success that they have in group homes is real. Like it's fantastic.
As I said, I think we can probably produce another 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 episodes on food security, but we've got a lot more to cover in the next episode. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
As we close tonight, don't forget to sign up as members at pws.org.au, where you'll also find ways to donate and sponsor our various projects and initiatives. Please remember to like, follow and share us on our socials. And until next week, let's keep talking.